Hi, I'm Lori from To the Trade for Interior Design Community, and I have Romina here. I am so excited to talk to you. You reached out to talk to to me about coming on the podcast. I couldn't be more excited because you have such a great experience in design. Tell us a little bit about you, your business, and how you came into this industry.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you for having me on today. It's a very, very cold and snowy week.
Ugh,
Uh,
you too.
in Montreal. So you're my ray of sunshine. So I worked in marketing, advertising, graphic design for almost 20 years. I started client side for a large multinational. I did a stage in marketing in Paris. And then I went to Toronto and had a great experience working for some of the best firms in the country, even in the world. And there was working in client service, so servicing the creative teams internally and the clients externally. And I had amazing opportunities to work with great people, great CEOs, great clients, great brands. And then at a turning point in my life, I decided that I wanted to build my own brand, my own business. And so I kind of reverse engineered my life and thought, what is the best way for me to spend the second half of my life? And I thought about helping people and where I was best suited to do that. Now, I had just done my house. I was married at the time, and I had done kind of overhauled the houses, redesigned the houses of half a dozen friends or so for fun. And so I hired a really talented young interiors photographer, and off we went.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah, so we photographed what we called my bachelorette pad at the time, and these 4 other properties. And while we were shooting my bachelorette pad, the HGTV editors wrote to her. She was an early adopter of stories and behind the scenes. This was, 8 years ago or so. And they wrote to her, and then they featured this Victorian little apartment that I had that they loved. And the rest is history.
I love that. I
Yes.
have a background in graphics as well. I came from the
Right.
graphic
Okay.
industry too. So we are like-minded in that. I worked in the printing manufacturing and product development for finite reproduction materials. I was consumable products manager and developer for companies like that are their printer manufacturers. So we worked with the end users of print for a long, long time. And I helped develop canvas and watercolor paper. I knew the people who invented the term giclée. So
Interesting.
yeah, I was very involved in the graphics world for a long time. It's so funny too that Pantone is getting so much play right now with their color of the year, Cloud Dancer. Of course, we have a lot of reactions to that. And I'm sure from your graphics industry background, I had someone say, well, it's good that it's not, design. It's really about print and graphics. And I said, yeah, but I mean, literally every product development team prints prototypes and before they manufacture anything. So it absolutely has play in this multi-billion dollar industries for every industry you can think of. I mean, if they're thinking about a new paint color for cars, they print first. They print to see what that would look like. They print, to see what it would look like in fashion. I mean, that's fabrics, textile, anything you can think of gets printed first so that they can figure out if that's the direction to go in. So it absolutely does play into every industry.
I agree. There are lots of crossover, intersection, cross-pollination. I worked at a firm called Taxi, and the owners did such a beautiful job with this rapidly growing agency with the interior design. We all had our own beautiful offices. Everything was branded, the little signs for the washrooms, all of our merch, all of our promotional materials. And then I went to go work at Concrete. They designed Azure magazine, which is a beautiful interior design. magazine owned by an Italian couple. So we helped them with the layout. We did the whole Renfrew catalog. So fashion, interior design, graphic design, print, paper, texture. Concrete also worked for Lita Bidet, who was a great Canadian fashion designer. We did lots of interesting work with Aritzia and many other brands. And then I went to go work, and all these offices were so lovely to work in. Concrete had bought an interesting old bank and divided it up into interesting spaces. I had a
Love it.
sitting inside a fireplace behind my desk. And then I worked for Frank Viva, who is also a very talented children's book author and illustrator. So he does all the books for MoMA in New York. And
Beautiful.
he had a gorgeous little space, with the pull lift, one of the few left in Toronto, I think, and lots of beautiful furniture. And so it was really a special career. And then off I went into interiors.
It's not uncommon. And I think people listening need to recognize that there are so many paths to interior design. And some of the most successful businesses that I know today came from, were design professionals that came from different backgrounds. Particularly anything that is related to sales or business seems to be such an advantage. How has your marketing background helped you with your design firm today?
It's definitely been helpful. I've updated my company name or tweaked my company name or logo and colors a little bit over the years. I've stuck mostly with yellows and greens. I was very fortunate at the beginning. My friend Virginia Johnson, who did the Kate Spade book illustrations. She also illustrated Deborah Needleman's book, which is one of the few interior design books that has no photography. It's all illustration. Such a beautiful book. And so she did a gorgeous little illustration of the exterior of a project with my little schnauzer. So that illustration with some green and yellow has been part of my branding since the beginning. I also worked with Stéphane Monet for my brand guidelines and my word mark. And he worked with me at Concrete and has his own firm in Rotterdam now. So it's been nice to carry it through. And I've always had a process document, client facing, 10 steps, super clear, and been lucky, naturally at ease speaking with magazines and
Building those I'm sure you've already had some of those relationships
journalists.
founded, from your past life that could have transferred over to your current life, and knowing the strategy of how to do that and how to invest in that. I had an interesting conversation today with a designer who was asking, she's in England, and asking about an opportunity to submit her work for, I believe, probably a self-published book,
Hmm.
with the intention of it being a marketing opportunity. And of course, this is what I'm seeing, this more and more, that the book, maybe has 20 interior designers, and each designer is being asked to give them to buy a certain number of books ahead of time. So if it's $100 a book and they have to buy, you
Yes,
know,
I've heard of this.
50
Yeah.
books or 100 books or whatever that might be, is that a good investment for that designer? And, I had a long chat with her this morning, and my advice was no. My advice was like, really, it's tricky because you have to, many of the designers are thinking they need to do that for credibility's sake. And, it depends on credibility of the publication, of course. I mean, and the viewers that, the circulation of that book in general, like how many sales are they going to get beyond what the books that you're buying. But also you have to think of it from a perspective of a sales tool. If you're one of 20 designers in that book, also the percentage of people who are seeing the book to pick you as the designer so it can ROI into a design client is probably much lower. It's something that I really think that designers need to think about it, step back and look at it from a perspective of like their total marketing budget and understanding how they should allocate that budget on a yearly basis. I think so many times we get pulled into emotional decisions, when it comes to marketing dollars. I would love designers to spend some marketing time on a weekly basis. That's one of the things that I sort of teach out there is spend some time on your marketing every day or at least every week so that there are some tasks you're doing in your day that are getting the word out about your brand and collaborating with local resources that can result in sales, publishing, all of those questions of like how to get published and how to get into a magazine and how to work with this or how to do a book or how to do a show house and how to get into a licensing line. It all boils down to money. It all boils down to designers wanting more clients and more money coming
Mhm.
in the door. And I get that, but the all opportunities that are pay to play need to be thoroughly investigated.
Yeah, and I think I was always very comfortable doing photo shoots because I had
I
done
love that.
in my previous career. I've always been comfortable doing them, commercials, print, fashion catalogs, so I've always really enjoyed.
I think I really want to stop you there because that's huge. I really think that more designers need to recognize that investment of the photography, um, and when to invest in the photography too. It's so crucial to have that editorial eye when you're looking at your project, whether or not you should even spend money on the photography, how you shoot the shots, how you're going to utilize them, how you're going to, all of that thought process has to be so tight and documented so that it is the investment, that you want it to be. I love that you take that that you're so experienced on that side. How has that helped you with getting featured?
I've just been really committed to photographing almost every project. I have about 4 projects right now that I'll wait because the winter in Quebec is so brutal. So I'll wait till spring and summer when there's some greenery and flowers. One of them is a lake house, so obviously want to wait for warmer weather. But I've always just committed those funds. I've always set those funds aside. I love all the photographers that I work with. There's a great lady in Toronto who goes to the Maritimes every summer, so she'll stop and shoot. There are great photographers in Toronto and in Montreal and in other places. Sometimes I use a stylist, sometimes I do it myself. I would say to any young designer, put the funds aside, hire maybe a younger interiors photographer who's a little bit less expensive, but definitely hire a stylist for the first few until you get the hang of it.
Right.
I had a business partner for a few years during COVID, my dear friend Jenny Dames, and we hired a pair of female stylists who had worked at Canadian House and Home magazine for a long time. And we shot with Alex Lukey. It was a beautiful old house in Rosedale in Toronto. And their business is called Me and Mo. You can look them up, but they style for a lot of the top designers in Toronto.
Think stylists that have editorial experience are worth their weight in gold because it's that vertical shot, right? It's that what's going to be on a magazine. You have to think about the vignettes in a vertical way.
Exactly.
I that's a huge missing component for so many designers because rooms are not, when we think of a room, we think of it as a landscape version, and now we're having to think of it as a vertical vignette of how that can be perceived through the camera. And they just kind of know like what will work and what will not work, and little details, like very finite details, can really screw up a shot, so it's not really worthy of a cover or not really worthy of an editorial component. I remember being on a photo shoot where it was as simple as like the Le Creuset pot was just not the right size for the oven, like the range. So it was just like these little, and you could just tell, everybody could tell, but we just didn't have a bigger size.
These little magical touches, that project got picked up, and the florals were really contemporary and
Ooh,
almost abstract. They did such a beautiful job, these talented women. And at the end of the photo shoot, Jenny Dames, my business partner at the time, who's a very talented designer, who did most of the work on that house, she said, me and Mo did such a good job styling that shoot and directing Alex. It was almost as if we didn't even have to attend.
oh, wow.
They were just, and they made it like we ordered lunch, but they made it so easy and so fun. And we shot the clients in the space, and the young daughter was just starting her modeling career. So we got this gorgeous shot of the beautiful mother daughter, and it got picked up, and it was a very, very special day. And it was a big investment for us, but boy, did it pay off.
Wow, I love those stories. I love when the marketing dollars are spent in ways that you can fully see the ROI. That's not always the case, but I love when that happens. That's so exciting.
Yeah, and people like to feel that they're part of a team. And so it's nice. We brought in two of the young women who were working for us that summer in Montreal, and we brought them in on the train and they stayed the night and we went for dinner, team dinner in Toronto, and they thought that that was really fun. And then some of the clients like to be around. And so this daughter was just about to launch her modeling career in fashion. So she was having just a ball with the photographers. So you try and include as many people as you can.
Well, it sounds to me, based on a lot of your answers so far, that collaboration is rooted in your design firm and your philosophy and how you do business. So, how has that played a part in your past career and future plans for your firm?
I've been very lucky to work with many nice people, and I've always used the hashtag love your trades because I really appreciate value all my trades that I use in all different locations and asking the experts for their advice. So trying not to micromanage, have a very good relationship with even my electrician in the country and, okay, here are my plans. And you'll say, don't forget here. And this maybe could be a sensor. So if they arrive home in the dark, it will come on automatically. And I would add an extra fixture here and lower these. So I'm trying not to be too bossy boots, but welcoming the expert opinion into the process.
Yes, and valuing all of those expert opinions so that people feel like they are on the team. That is so critical to the success of a designer, creating a culture of collaboration, which is really sometimes it's easier than others, doing that. You have to have a willing participants and all of the parties involved, but it's really magical when that kind of environment can be created, which is it's exciting to see. Yeah.
And I think that it's a better way to be in the world and it's a better way to be in the industry to collaborate and share resources. In the fall, I was invited by Christopher Farcloth, very esteemed fabric house in London, and we were 25 designers from North America invited to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the Fabric House. And we're still sharing resources on our group text on WhatsApp. So what's the name of that wallpaper that you said? Da, da, da? And what about fabrics for this? And we met up again in New York and we're planning. So that's been nice to have that new little kind of micro community from that trip.
Those communities, and there are literally thousands and thousands around the world of group texts or group chats or little Facebook groups or Instagram groups. I love seeing it and sometimes you all meet at an event or with a trade partner or a tour or however that happens. I just think that is hugely powerful for any designer. So even creating your own little group on Instagram. We do every few months, we do a let's follow each other on Instagram, and it's hugely successful. We get, a lot of people who participate get 200 new followers.
That's fun.
And I've personally met so many people who have made group chats with some of the people that they've met through those events. And over the years, we just celebrated our 13th year of interior design community. And I know for sure, because I've gotten photos, that designers have become each other's bridesmaids or gone on vacation as families together. And that's the stuff I love the most. If I had to pick a favorite, it's the real relationships that get built between designers and how enriching that is to a designer to have that support system where you can ask a vulnerable question, or you can get a resource, or you can just rely on somebody to get what you're going through.
For sure. And I love to see the way other designers respond to posts. I'm doing a project here and I need a wallpaper installer and I'm here and my upholsterer is sick, or even when the
Be there for each
photographer's,
other. I
yeah.
mean, that's what community really should be about, is being there for one another. I mean, we are in this together. Finding your community wherever that it is, whether it is on interior design community or whether it is out there or whether you create your own. I love it. I love, love, love it. I support it as much as I possibly can everywhere I can.
And everybody benefits and it's so
Everybody.
more fun.
It is. It's more fun. You feel more connected when you go to a trade event. You feel more connected in the business because it can be really isolating sometimes. And people feel very alone a lot with their troubles. And so just having those resources and even the emotional aspect sometimes when you've had that communication with a client that's been difficult and need to vent to somebody who would get it. you know
Mhm. Mhm.
that is so valuable. I encourage everybody listening to create that. If you don't have it, make it. Put 10 designers together that you like in a group chat and say, hey, I think we should be here for each other. I think we should help each other through this. You would be surprised, even at the top of the game. Think of the designers that are the biggest celebrities, the most successful. You think they know everything. They have communities. They have a group of friends that they
Sure.
go to when they need a vent or they have a question or they need a resource, the same as everyone else, the same as the brand new designers who are out there today. So it doesn't change. It always, and sometimes it's kind of like, one time I was watching this designer who now is a famous designer, but at the time she was fairly new, and she was in an elevator and she heard a designer that she very much looked up to and respected. And she was on the phone with a client dealing with a difficult problem about trim. And she was like, I can't believe that this designer has the same problems I have. I can't believe it that this is what she's going through too. And I just think that little kernel of you're not alone, that this is a hard job. Everybody has these issues, whether your name is in the AD 100 or it isn't, so I love that. I love that.
I love it too. And London was really fun. We would have, after all of these amazing events that they would organize for us and dinners and private clubs, we'd go back to the library in the hotel and have sort of therapy sessions.
I bet you did. I love
Yeah,
that. I mean, it's
about
like camp, right?
feeling.
You go away to camp when you're little and you bond with these kids. I mean, I had years ago, I went to camp and when I was a kid, and had my camp boyfriend and had my camp best friends, and some of them, I knew for years and years and years. So that is kind of what it's like. It's this bonding experience. I mean, that you can't duplicate that. It's just like immersion and information and connection with people who really truly get it.
It was very cathartic and yeah, full open source about billing and spending on photo shoots and publication and custom this and custom that and how do you do it there and do you have a guy? Was
Yeah.
quite interesting.
Love that. But let's talk a little bit about your successes and failures through your business. What do you think of as your biggest success to
Oh, I have
date for
a
your
little
firm?
This is Lily,
I love it.
head of marketing. I would say I was lucky to get quite a few little projects published early on, so that's great. Um, some referrals, which is always really nice too, because
Yes.
when you're really special clients become brand ambassadors and spread the good word. And then in terms of failures, I would say, and I say this to new clients as well, I have a process document that carefully outlines all the stages of the project and where there is often, people are really kind of strung out and tired at the end of a project from having the trades there. And so I refer to that at the end of the document as discombobulating. So I try and prepare them. It's a lot of time and a lot of money, and there can be stressful points. But in terms of billing and phases and checkpoints, I'm very, very strict. It's 10 phases, and the cadence of the payments with the design and construction. And anytime I have strayed even slightly from the process, not really broken the process, but skipped a step or had a convincing client convinced me to tweak one of the phases to their liking. Not that the projects go sideways, but it never sits well with me, and there's usually an issue. So that's only happened a handful of times, but they were really good reminders to stick by my process and my fee schedule. And then after each project, I go in and I make little changes to the process document as well as the corresponding services agreement.
Right, right.
The services agreement has the same nomenclature as the process document.
Right.
So when it comes time to sign, they're very familiar with, FF&E, trades and materials, which fee is what, and how it's all going to unfold. So you're sort of educating the client on how the project will unfold with the process guide at the beginning of the project, so that when you sign, there are no real surprises, right? We're going to sign this, and then we're going to move into this phase, and then we'll write you a check for that, and we'll, pay the GC directly, or however it works.
Right. So in your process, your first step when you meet or a potential client, do you immediately share this process guide, or do you do some other warming up factors where you kind of outline, like a lot of designers have investment guides? That's our question of the day, is actually, do you have an investment guide? You give them an expectation on what things cost. How does that work for you?
So I try to have the client decide how much they want to spend early on. If they've done projects before, then they know. If they haven't worked with an interior designer before, some designers will not work with clients who haven't worked with an interior designer before. They find it's a huge red flag. I offer a little bit more client education. Pretty easy to give ranges and percentages. If we spend if we spend 400,000 on this project, then the design fee will be approximately this much, as a percentage. And this percentage of that total will also be for the trades. And then we need to keep some aside for decor. And every project is so unique.
Yes, of course. They're all custom to some degree. Do you have a
Exactly.
minimum spend? Is that part of the process or no?
No, because I'll have one or two chats by phone or Zoom, and then I go to meet the client and build some goodwill and trust and good faith and see the space and meet them and see what it's like and let it unfold organically.
Is your perfect project more renovation or full home build, like new build?
Either or.
Either or.
Yeah,
And would you prefer a whole home renovation or partial?
whole home, I
Whole
would say.
home.
But I like partial. I'm doing partial right now, and it's going to be the whole main floor. So we're going to gut the front entrance and do the kitchen and the powder room and the pantry. And then the other rooms are so beautiful with built-in cabinetry around the fireplace. It's a very elegant home built in 1922. So in those rooms, I'm going to paint, but I'll add wallpaper, but they have a lot of beautiful furniture already. So we're just going to do a refresh of those rooms and keep the bulk of the budget for the big renovation at the front and the back of the house. And then I think next year or the year after, we'll do the basement and the top floor, and that's fine too.
Yeah, yeah. Phases is not a bad plan, and especially when people want to do things correctly and want to, spend money and make it beautiful. Sometimes offering a phased out approach is is a really smart way to keep people, the right clients, in the loop. It's not a bad sales strategy.
And also, even the wealthiest clients have a budget.
Sure.
They know how much
Hopefully.
they wanna spend and not spend.
Right, right. And every client, no matter the budget, there's, that financial fatigue moment, that tension point at some point where they just feel like, they've spent too much. And at that moment, it's almost better to like ease off and phase something else out. I always
Mhm,
tell designers, because we pull our designers often, that and referral clients are the number one source for most designers to get new business. and
mhm,
and so to keep those referrals coming in, or even keep that relationship going, having an opportunity to upsell even a past client on a different part of the home, a year down the road, when they're not feeling that financial tension point anymore. It's like when you have a baby, right? You've been through that and the pain is forgotten. You love your space, you love your new kiddo. And so now you're thinking about the new one. Well, that is the same thing with home renovation. That year later could be the perfect moment to present a client with, I know we kind of left your outdoor space unfinished. Have you
mhm,
been giving any thought to your
mhm.
outdoor space? Do you want an outdoor kitchen? Do you want, the beautiful patio by the pool? Do you want, to come in and do the accessories layer that we didn't get to last time, to do that final finishing touch on what we did together? I think that those are really great upsell moments and also keep you top of mind with past clients. So you can keep the referrals coming.
Yeah, and be open to all sorts of different things. Like during COVID, we got lots of funny calls. So we got a call from a potential client who's become a dear friend, and she confessed that her brother was a builder and they had started doing the kitchen. And she was kind of in over it. And I said, we normally don't take on projects that have already started. And she said, I know, but I said, don't worry, I'll come up, I'll drive up the mountain kind of tomorrow and have a look. And it was such a beautiful home, and she's such a special person, and she's become a great friend, and we did the whole house, and then we did the ensuite, and eventually we'll probably do some more work on the exterior, or maybe build a garage with a studio above. And I just went back there to do the photo shoot. And other family on that same road in Knowlton, in the country where I live, about an hour east of Montreal near the Vermont border, they asked me to do all the exterior design. So they had worked with the landscaper, but had no furniture, no umbrellas, no accessories, no idea of how to do it, where to put the barbecue, the table. And it's such a beautiful project. And eventually they'll do the interior. It's a very modest cottage. They did the outside first because all the grandkids are little and it's multi-generational and they wanted to swim and have a fire pit. So I don't know. If you only assessed from the intake form online, you might not have agreed, but if you go and see the space, it was a beautiful project.
And your part of that is upselling. I mean, that's not what designers think of themselves as salespeople, but essentially that's what you do. And so when you meet the client, you assess the project, you see the potential of what could be done. That's kind of
Mhm,
part of the work, is to make those kinds of educated suggestions and
mhm,
possibilities, and then working with the budget to phase that through so that it's done in ways that the client can afford it and can budget it and can want to invest in that kind of things. All of those things have to be those boxes have to be checked, I'm sure. Like, I like this client, I like this project, I like the profit margin, I like, it's not too far away, I can manage it. And then also maybe could be photographed. There could be like a whole check sheet you're looking at from assessing yourself. Yeah.
sure. And, I think it's nice to go and have a visit. I don't charge for that first visit. I think it's like first date. You're getting to know each other. You don't have to get into the process right away, but they know that you have one. So
Sure, sure. And do think very successful designers, we've interviewed very successful designers we've talked to through the years. And I'm talking real financial success, not just saying they're financially
Mhm.
successful. I've looked at books of designers to qualify that. I can tell you they all have a detailed process. And that's a huge factor in profitability for interior designers is really having a detailed process and having the process become a living document that is continually refined.
Yeah.
There
I'm
will be
redoing mine right
scenarios.
now. Yeah,
There will
I'm
be new
rewriting
protections.
mine now with one of my favorite copywriters, Katie Hayden, who worked at House and Home magazine for a long time. She writes for many magazines. But we're tweaking it again because there's some learning from the last project where I've added a phase called specification. And that helps the client understand that there's so much technical research and knowledge that goes into selecting the faucets and the lighting. It's not just going online and filling.
No, no, and finding the right product, the right size, color, shape, and also running that through your, responsible interior design filter of, is this ethically sourced? Is this quality made? Who do I know the chain of custody of the product and where it's going to go and where it's going to be and how is the company themselves reliable? It's a lot. It's a lot more than any consumer could possibly even understand. And then the sheer fact that the it's just the truth that sometimes it can take as much time as the product costs itself to find the right product. It just is. I mean, there's no way around it. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it literally takes seconds. You're like, I know exactly what that product should be. That's the right, sofa for this client. It's going to be the right size. I can customize it to the size that I need it to be. I know exactly who I'm going to buy that from, and I know exactly which one I want. But sometimes there's inevitably products in that list that are difficult, like tricky. So it's always like, you know, even educating the client about the time spent to do that. And that's part of the investment that they're making, and that you're doing work and communicating that work back to the client, that that is being done on a regular basis. I was having a really interesting conversation with a group of designers, and that over communicate at least once a week, communicating with your clients and letting them know this was done this week. This is being done this week. This is being done this week, so that they understand work is being done. And you'd be surprised how many times that doesn't happen with solo entrepreneurs because they're so busy doing the work. They don't spend the time to invoice the client, even if it's a zero cost because it's already included in your retainer or whatever it might be. This is
Hmm.
the work that was done this week. You have not. I'm not doing anything for you right now. Depending on if you're flat fee or however you work, communicate with the client about the time and effort you're spending so that they know the work is being done.
I like to do internally a status meeting, obviously Monday morning. We call it status. I inherited that term from advertising,
Yes.
that's what we called it with the team of client service people. But I also like to do it on Friday mornings because I like to send an update to the clients on Friday. If I am in the car on the road on Friday, I will often record little audio messages for my clients to say, I'm on the road today. Stephanie's looking after this, and a reminder that we'll be back on Tuesday for a walkthrough with the electrician. And while I'm in the city, I'm going to pick up the fabric for the bench, and I'll bring that to you on Tuesday as well. If you have any questions or concerns, you can call me. I am in the car. A team member will also send you a little update via email, but, we're here. If you need anything, just give a ring. So even if you're busy, I think it's important. And I think Friday is very helpful to clients because they go into the weekend much more relaxed.
They do. They do. And then they are feeling there is a plan for this past week and there is a plan for this next week and that the project is moving forward. If they're not hearing from you, there's a story they're telling themselves about what is happening, and it is that you are doing nothing. That you are just taking their money and running off with it and nothing is getting done and this is going to take 10 times longer. And that's when you're going to get inundated with questions and concerns and red flags over the weekend, or maybe new directions, because they don't know that you're handling it. So then think it's their job to start doing something to move the project forward. And that can create its own level of issues that come from that lack of communication.
There's a great line, and I can't remember the source at this moment, but it was, one of these industry webinars or courses that I did during COVID. Maybe it was Sean Lowe, but the line is, the answer to confusion is always no.
Right.
And that I find, if you do not have a process document, they don't understand how the project will unfold, how they will be invoiced, the cadence of the billing. The answer is no, because it becomes complicated and confusing. So that's the reason for the process. And then the updates geographically here, I do projects in Montreal and in the Eastern Townships. So some of my city clients are going back and forth. So it's really important, or they're going back to Toronto or New York. So it's very important to keep people informed and know their schedule.
Yes, I agree.
Yes, we are going to be in the country all week. We're working from home. And then, or if you're working on a city project, we're going to be in the country. So you can come through anytime. The housekeeper's there. You have your keys. So flexibility with those two locations has been helpful.
Yes, absolutely. I love that you're just listening to the way that you run your firm is so detail oriented. And I think that that's exactly what designers who are listening need to be paying attention to as we bring in guests to come in and listen to you, that you get to listen to, that you are hearing. What a great, every just successful firm has that common thread, that there's a great process behind every single great designer, and that they are continually tweaking it. They're continually making it better, and they're making it very transparent for the client to see what that looks like, so that they alleviate the fears, frustrations of the client, and head right into supplying the desires, which is what good salesmanship is. They have to like you, know you, and trust you to do business with you. So you're making it easy for them to do that.
Yeah. And it's, and that's another thing for young designers, I would say, is don't forget about insurance.
Yes.
I know
Yes.
you and I have talked about that.
Yes.
And for your trades as well. So when it's a new build or a big renovation, I have a binder on site with everyone's insurance.
That is so smart, because there are so many problems that come from insurance. A new one that just came into our world that I hadn't heard before, and is something that I just want to get out there while we're on the podcast, is
Great.
that there's a great increase in VAs that work for interior designers and work for trades too. So it could just be virtual assistants that are working. And some of those VAs are doing really detail oriented parts of the project. They might be, handling procurement. They might be handling some of the design. They might be doing things that really have a high risk factor for your brand. And they should be carrying their own insurance as well.
Interesting.
That is something that I hadn't really thought of. I had a
Right.
designer who is a 1099 VA for another designer, and was having a conversation with that designer. And the designer said, if I had a contractor working for me and they made a mistake, I would hold them responsible for that mistake. Now, can you imagine they ordered the cabinets in the wrong color, and you're a 1099 less paid employee, but not a real employee? Are they financially responsible if they made a mistake like that and ordered $100,000 mistake? I mean, that could happen. And so should that VA carry their own liability insurances? And that's a tricky part. I mean, in the US, we have a lot of problems with people can sue for anything. So
It's the opposite here in Canada.
yes, yeah. So that is just something I want you, if you're listening, to consider. If you are a VA working for a design firm,
Designer.
or you might want to consider having your own liability insurance, talking to some insurance providers, and also setting yourself up as the VA with your own LLC, because you want to limit your liability, and you don't want that designer coming after your house if you made a mistake on the project. That could happen. I mean, I haven't seen it yet, but I mean, just the fact that it's out there, and then talking to some of the designers I've been talking to,
Mhm.
you could be sued, you could be liable. I mean, if you're a contract employee for that person, you have a certain amount of risk that you're participating in by doing the work.
Yeah, and think it shows a lot of respect for the client's home and, for the quality of the trades that you select, that
Absolutely.
everybody's insured.
Yes, yes, because things go wrong that you don't even expect. I've had designers on the podcast before where they had a tradesperson who accidentally backed into the client's car, or
Sure, sure.
things happen.
Fender.
Things happen. So making sure that the client feels comfortable with however that might play out while people are in their space. I think
Mhm.
having insurance should be the minimum, and protecting yourself as a business owner and taking that part seriously is really important. Well, I just have really enjoyed chatting with you this entire
So
hour, and I want to make sure everyone follows you. So we're going to put all of the details in our email of how you can find Romina, and you can make sure you follow her on social. Go to check out our website. Go check out her work. It's so good. And reach out. Reach out. We're a community.
send me a note anytime.
Yes, wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Lori. Thanks for everything. Such a pleasure.